Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, everyone,
Hello, everyone.
from the shoe room today. Um, from my side.
Hmm.
So,
Um, so today we had a very lively discussion, and then we hit the record button, and now we're slowing down, which is a segue, I think, because today's topic is pressure, stress, and especially, I guess, at the workplace. And we are going to dive into that and explore it from different angles and perspectives. And yeah, according to me, it's the major factor for anything that goes on that goes bad, or pressure, stress is really a major causal thing. And you need to understand it properly. Probably, unless you're educated, you probably do not.
true, true. So, what triggered us? What triggered us in this conversation a bit is the accumulation, the increments of posts that came by, and that mostly came from you, Magnus,
Mm,
about management, the role of management and organization, the role of management in transitions, in agile transformations, to use those words, for example, um, where we often see management as the bad guys that don't want to be servant leaders or
yeah.
um, that don't get it, that don't want to understand, that don't want to change. And this is already the first invitation then of the talk is to go stand side by side with them and try to look things through their eyes
Mm.
and feel what they feel. And then the word pressure and pressurized comes in very quickly.
Tension was also with us. Pressure and tension, yeah. So from the perspective of a team in a situation, it might be very complex, and so possibly this team finds that we don't have the fair working conditions. There are things here not in consistency with the agile transformation that we say that we're doing, or maybe even the agile adoption, or we are being agile, and it's not working out, and it's outside our control. So why? And we have brought this forward to the management so many times. Why don't you do anything? You are such and they're right. But here's the interesting question: Why is it? Why is it that management finds it hard? And why is it that it's hard to see why it's hard to the managers? So yeah, and it's a fair statement, it's a fair expectation. I was scrum mastering a team, and we about 50% of the time was not planned for scrum events, or working in a scrum, the sprint plan, because there's such huge failure demand from the old product portfolio, and a lot of different things. And this was really, really complex and not good. It's an organizational problem. And we had healthy conversation with management, and they agree. And then what?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of things in what you said, so I'm
the
trying to
process.
arrange everything a little bit in my head now.
Have you been?
So yeah, why is it?
No, I mean,
Sorry.
have you experienced a team where you have felt this pressure or disorder or dysfunctions, and management would have it has been looked for management, but they were not there?
Yes and no. Yes. Also as a Scrum Master, but not only as a Scrum Master. I think if I look back in the past, maybe even 10 years, mostly in improvement projects or process improvement or operational
Mm,
improvement gigs that I did. There's like people are expected to keep delivering while also
mm,
becoming better or while also making that change that the company requests of them. And So in that regard, looking back at one of the Scrum teams I worked with about 2 years ago, I was brought in there as a new Scrum Master with the assignment like bring Scrum to them because it will help us to deliver better value and faster and the whole thing. But I came into a team that was delivering a project with a deadline, and they knew they were 4 months late, and they knew they were not going to make the deadline. But like from all other forces that were able to put pressure on them, the deadline had to be made. Um, so there was no space. That team was under work and delivery pressure, but then there was also this let's go Scrum pressure because the thing is that I am still convinced that changing the way of working would have helped them. It would not help them to make the deadline with everything that was in scope, but it would help us to
Yeah,
deliver
yeah.
something at least by the deadline that we have. Um, but there was no space for that, and there was this tension between delivery and becoming better at it, right? And those are, if we go back to that transformation word we just used, I think that's what we see a lot is that there's this delivery pressure, this day-to-day pressure that's on
Hmm.
us, that tension is there. And then there's this question to improve, to change. Um, and that's a big thing. And honestly, if I think about it now, I've seen this a lot in the last 10 years. I'm currently in an environment where there is space. This doesn't, in the environment where I am now, there's a lot less deadline pressure,
Well,
and you
oh,
see people thriving. You see teams thriving. You see managers thriving because they have the stress. There's a lot less stress, and there is space to be explored, and it's so different. So I've been like in the last 2 years I've been at the two
yeah. Oh,
ends
wow. That's a
of this
perfect
conversation.
observation. The stress. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Oh, so now we're having a conversation. It's kind of on the analytical level. It's like a bit of system thinking, and I was noticing my brain. So how does this look if you were a salesperson and there's a market window, or we have sold something and there's a 100,000 euro penalty, or if we miss the deadline, etc., etc. Or how does this look from the CEO, the boardroom, and there's an expectation, a certain profit or margin to deliver to the shareholders every quarter, and so on and so forth. But maybe because this problem is not possible to understand unless we understand humans. And to understand humans is to understand our biology, or what neuroscience says about what happens under severe stress, under pressure, what happens. And so I think it's important to know that the biology changes when there's a certain, we wake up in the morning, there's like an arousal, or you wake up, there are hormones going on and we get excited. As you can notice now, my voice is
Mm.
picking up speed because I'm getting excited about something, in contrast to where we started. So that's a natural tendency. And then there's the continuation of that. In certain situations during our evolution, if there was a real threat, like some danger, like a wild animal, or a conflict, or a war situation with another tribe, what does the brain do? Well, the prefrontal cortex, where we have our logical reasoning, our long term, our very nuanced, exploring many different options and being good at relations, it get it gets less blood. So it will literally, you will become, that part of your brain is not accessible. Moreover, the hormones are shifting, so your body is ready to flee or flight. So blood will be diverted to other parts of your body because, there's a lion running at you. You don't carefully need to examine your options. You need to flee or fight. And so this part of the brain is of no use. The reptile brain and the blood flows in your body is needed there. Now then, this is who we are. And that biology is now injected into modern organizations of complex work. And unless unless you're very skillful in understanding and recognizing biological stress. You don't have the proper tools in your toolbox. And by the way, this is not an analytical problem. When someone is in fight or flight mode, you cannot reason with them necessarily. That's why you're in anger. So the salesperson, and there's a really hard pressure. We have to deliver. This market window will be gone. And it's not only about, meeting a certain bonus. That might also be true, but it might literally be kind of what's going to happen with our company, our work, and so on and so forth. And then it's not possible to reason. The only thing you can do is meet with empathy. Oh wow, it seems like there's a lot of pressure on you now. What does this situation look to you? Would you walk me through what you're seeing right now? What's the experience that will help the other person to slowly calm down? Eventually, you can start to reason about other things. If you contrast, Serge, I'm curious. Prior organizations where stress has been high, and now it's different. If you think about communication and people talking with each other, is it possible for you to describe the quality in those two different?
Yeah. So the first one, the stress one, there was constant like not yelling, but the idea of
Hmm.
people saying things, but there was always tension, right? You can see that on people's bodies. Like they we call it
Yeah, yeah.
frunzen in Dutch. I
It's
don't
this
know.
phase.
They frowning in English. They frown like yeah, this face like and that's a
Yeah,
closed
yeah.
like this the closed I need this now kind of thing, and where in the organization
Yeah.
that I am today,
Oh.
it's
Mm,
there's
mm,
openness. There's time to talk to each other. There's this like it's not that in the other organizations people weren't willing to help each other out, because as human beings, I think we naturally help each other out. We're willing to help. Um, but that willingness to help in organization A, where there was pressure, caused more pressure because it took some of their time. Where in organization B, it's natural to help because there's space to help. People communicate differently because there's
mm.
I feel there's more communication in opportunities. There's the sentence that
Wow.
I hear a lot is like, we don't know, but
Hmm.
let's
Hmm.
explore. Let's take some time to have a look at this, right? I have a team member. So at this point, I'm a scrum master for two teams. I have a team member who's really into machine learning, and machine learning is one of the ways forward in what we do. In what we do around data for the moment. And there's this other guy in the other team that's into machine learning, and they just took time and they start connecting about it. And it is without pressure, but because it is without pressure, they deliver beautiful things. Like in 2 weeks' time, they had their first machine learning algorithm, and it didn't cover the hypotheses that they drew out, but there
Hmm.
was time for this experiment, and they learned, and that this will help the organization forward. Whereas in the other pressurized organization, there is no space to
Mm.
learn or unlearn or fail, because there's this constant delivery, 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 right? And I know this is a lot
Oh,
more context
very
than your
good.
question about the communication, but I think this all links together very much. Um,
So there's a certain irony here. Any organization or company under severe pressure risks having this tendency that we stop listening deeply or exploring our options. We jump to conclusions, and it's a bit of I hear yeah, that's not relevant now. We have this deadline. I don't have time for, and so that brings about uh, less communication, less understanding, which brings about more tensioning, misunderstanding, and pressure, which brings about poor communication and listening skills. And so there's a vicious cycle of endless firefighting. And you will wear people out. The brain is not designed to work. I've been there several years of that. task management, every situation, there's a team wanting something, and I want to sit down and listen to them deeply as a manager. At the same time, my brain is aware of at least 20 important emails in my inbox, 100 emails a day, some of them potentially very, very urgent or critical, it seems initially. So our biology is such that we want to go to fight and flight, but the modern workplace is such that it will
Yeah,
not
there's
help.
no, yeah, that's you talked about systems thinking. You mentioned systems thinking in the beginning of our talk, and while you were doing this, I can see the cards on the
Mhm.
Miro board, right? There's this, yeah, but there's this downward spiral, eh? Because the pressure will cause more fight and flight, will cause more pressure, but the space to learn and unlearn and explore and be
Yeah,
human and empathic with each other is going to go away. And I think it's really it's bringing you to a point where it's an explosive situation for the people, but also for the organization. Because the constant feeling that you're running behind is not. It's also biologically not good for us, but it's also not good for your organization, I think. So maybe that's also a call out. I made a post on LinkedIn about this as well. Is the need for slack time, the deliberate need to
mhm.
leave space, to not fully use the full capacity of someone's time
Oh man,
at all time. Like don't use the percentages Excel
yeah,
files to allocate people to projects. Leave them, yeah, but leave them that space, and that also counts for managers. But that also counts for coaches or scrum masters or whoever. Like whoever is in a profession in any professional position that requires delivery of some sort, we need that slack time, that slow down space, that that exploration space to think, to be human, to talk. That's maybe an idea that we could link to
yeah,
this. Like how do we solve
yeah.
this pressure? Create space to
I
relieve,
mean, yeah,
maybe.
I wrote another. At the heart of every problem or opportunity is a human being. And so to understand deeply what the possibilities are is to understand the human being. And to me, understanding neuroscience and who we are is of the essence. The first principle of productivity in modern work is humans and how we behave. And unless you have taken time to understand it, and unless you have practiced, I mean, there's a difference between concept and practice, theory and practice. Unless you have practiced, what do you do when you meet someone in severe stress? How uh, how are you? What the beingness? It's so easy that we trigger each other. We are designed that way. Someone stressed, my brain might also get up in stress, but we can practice and learn to bring calmness. So we meet people, yes, that with empathy. That's to be very simple. Meet with empathy.
Mhm.
Listen. Don't respond. Don't try to say, "Oh, but you're stressed. You are misunderstanding because this is not exactly the way you have perceived it to be. So you don't have to be stressed." That's just not going to enter. This brain is not there. To lead with a smile and a presence, and demonstrate with body language, "I'm with you. You are not alone." This must seem very strange to an engineering mind or a sales mind or a manager mind, but that's what you need to practice to learn how to do. Otherwise, as an organization, you will not be the thing you could be, as you said. Resource utilization. So if you work 80%, we get this much money. But if you're at 100%, then obviously we'll get more money. But no, that is not how humans work. We don't. We just don't. So if you want to maximize the profits, you need to embrace the idea that there needs to be slack time because these brains need it. I don't know of any other brain.
Mhm.
Yeah. This is an animal as well.
Yeah, I haven't looked into the neuroscience of animals, any animal actually, but yeah, it's a yeah, absolutely. This is the only animal that I kind of know about neuroscience, or a little bit about it. Yeah, um, yeah.
Maybe. Mm,
I think we've used this phrase that this is episode number 8. I think now we I think we used this space. We use this phrase a lot. Leave space, slow down. It's coming. It's this trend that comes back, right? Um, and maybe one of the thought that I get to
yes.
um, while you were talking as well, Magnus, is short term versus long term thinking. It's to create that space, to create that space to connect with people, to be human, to de-stress. Needs to
Yeah. Wow.
We need to let go of that the short term quarterly thinking and think about the long term sustainability of things. Um, it's a yeah, that's a thought
Sustainability,
train maybe
going
for a next
fast, going
episode.
slow,
But
long term, short
I've
term. I'm
been thinking
thinking
a
of
lot
going,
about the word
fast,
sustainability
thinking slow.
and where it
Kahneman, Nobel
fits.
Prize winner. And what he does,
So
he
yeah,
explained a mass psychosis that explains how we could have the crash in the US with in terms of real estate. But he explains the brain. Well, he refers how we do cognitive biases. And by the way, stress is in there. Mm. So the
hmm
suggestion here, we
yeah, it's
imagined we
again
would
fight or
talk
flight
about
pattern, right?
managers and understanding the pressure of managers on
Okay.
managers, but we didn't. That's okay. My ending today would be that uh, everything starts and ends with humans, and you need to understand humans, and you do just by natural your upbringing. But in modern workplaces, oftentimes we employ patterns that are not helpful. Learning about neuroscience a bit, the theory, and moreover the practice. You could go down the rabbit hole. You don't have to, but that's a great book. It explains so much. Mm. Humans.
Yeah, it's yeah. For me, there are two main takeaways.
Mm.
That's that people under stress don't have any
Mm.
space for anything else. It's the stress takes their
Inventing.
cognitive
Mm.
power, so there's no cognitive power for learning, unlearning, listening, anything. That's one thing. And no, yeah, exactly. And then the second takeaway for me today is, and that's an invitation for myself as well, is to go more into the neuroscience of things, because in managing people requires understanding people, and understanding people is also the biological scientific part of how we work as human beings. So
Mm.
it's really I think for me, and I hope also for our listeners,
I
this
find my
talk will
brain
be an
tempted to
invitation
continue,
to look into
but I
neuroscience a bit
will
more.
add. I will edit
So thank
myself,
you
and let's.
for that trigger,
You
Magnus.
know, if you view this episode and if you have any thoughts about stress or pressure as it emerges in your experience, how it happens, and what it does to you or to the people around you, if you have an input, a comment, or question, I really do care. I know we care. And let's go learn this together. Stay in touch. We're approachable.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being here again, and see you next time.